Picture this. You're a railway worker in 1898 sleeping under the African stars, and the last sound you hear is the padding of massive paws circling your tent. By morning, you're gone. Not a trace left, except drag marks leading into the darkness. This happened over and over again in a place called Tsavo, and the killers weren't human. They were two lions who developed a taste for human flesh so insatiable that they killed over 100 people in 9 months. But here's the question that's haunted researchers for over a century. Why did they do it? Why did these particular lions cross a line that most predators never cross? The story begins in the heart of British East Africa, in a desolate stretch of thornbush country along the Tsavo River. It's 1896, and the British Empire has decided to build a railway from the Kenyan coast to Lake Victoria in Uganda. The Uganda Railway, they called it, a symbol of progress, a triumph of engineering. But to build it, thousands of workers, mostly imported laborers from India, had to carve a path through some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. Tsavo wasn't just remote, it was brutal. Scorching heat during the day, freezing nights. Water was scarce, food was scarce, and as the workers would soon discover, safety was non-existent. The railway bridge over the Tsavo River became the focal point of something that felt like a nightmare. Two large male lions, both maneless or nearly so, began stalking the camps at night. At first, the attack seemed random. A worker here, a worker there. But then the pattern became clear. These lions weren't just hunting for food. They were hunting systematically, deliberately. They would enter tents, drag men from their beds, and vanish into the darkness before anyone could respond. The fear spread like wildfire through the camps. Men refused to work. Some fled entirely. The construction of the railway ground to a halt. Enter Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson, a British engineer tasked with building the bridge. Patterson was no stranger to danger, but nothing had prepared him for this. He documented everything in meticulous detail, and his account would later become the primary source for understanding what happened at Tsavo. According to Patterson, the lions operated with an intelligence that bordered on uncanny. They seemed to know when guards were posted. They avoided traps. They outsmarted every defensive measure the workers erected. Thornbush barriers. The lions found gaps. Fire. They waited until it died down. Elevated platforms. They learned to climb or simply waited for someone to come down. The body count rose. 10 victims. 20. 30. The workers began calling the lions the ghost and the darkness. Patterson himself became obsessed with killing them. He spent nights perched in trees, waiting with his rifle, listening to the sounds of the camp below. Sometimes he'd hear screams. Sometimes he'd hear the sound of something heavy being dragged. And sometimes, worst of all, he'd hear nothing at all, just the eerie silence that follows sudden violence. Now, before we go further into Patterson's hunt, let me ask you something. If you're finding this story as chilling as I think you are, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people discover these dark chapters of history. And honestly, I love knowing you're as hooked on this as I am. So why did these lions become man-eaters? Let's unpack the theories, because the answer isn't simple. First, consider the environment. Tsavo in the 1890s was suffering from multiple ecological crises. A rinderpest epidemic had swept through East Africa, decimating populations of buffalo, antelope, and other ungulates. This was a disease that killed millions of animals. For predators like lions, this meant their natural prey base was collapsing. Suddenly, the easy meals were gone. Lions are opportunistic hunters. When their preferred prey disappears, they adapt, they improvise. And humans, soft-bodied, slow-moving, and utterly unaware of their surroundings, made tempting targets. But wait, loss of prey happens all the time in nature. Most lions don't turn to man-eating, so what made these two different? Here's where it gets interesting. Modern analysis of the Tsavo lions' remains, which are now housed in Chicago's Field Museum, revealed something crucial. One of the lions had severe dental disease, broken teeth, abscesses, damage that would have made taking down a zebra or buffalo excruciatingly difficult. Humans, by contrast, require no real fight. We're essentially defenseless without weapons. If you're a lion with a broken jaw and you're starving, and there's a camp full of sleeping people, well, the math is pretty straightforward. But dental disease alone doesn't explain everything. The second lion? Its teeth were largely intact. So we need to dig deeper. Consider the railway workers' conditions. These men slept in flimsy tents, often on the ground, in camps that were barely secured. They were exhausted from grueling labor. Many were malnourished, some were sick. In the predator calculus, These are ideal prey characteristics: easy, vulnerable, predictable. The lions didn't have to chase anyone, they just had to wait until dark and walk into camp. There's also a darker possibility, one that researchers have only recently begun to explore seriously. Cultural transmission. Lions learn from each other. If one lion discovers that humans are easy prey, it can teach that behavior to others. In Tsavo, there's evidence that man-eating wasn't entirely new. Before the railway workers arrived, slave caravans had passed through the region for decades. Bodies were sometimes left behind. Lions that scavenged those corpses would have learned that human flesh was edible, and once that knowledge entered the local lion population, it could be passed down, mother to cub, pride member to pride member. These two males might have learned man-eating from previous generations. Patterson's hunt for the lions stretched across 9 months. 9 months of terror. He set traps using goat carcasses as bait. The lions ignored them and took humans instead. He built elevated platforms and waited through freezing nights, rifle ready. The lions didn't show. He organized hunting parties with the bravest workers. The lions evaded them. It was as if the animals understood they were being hunted and adjusted their tactics accordingly. Then, on December 9, 1898, Patterson finally got his chance. He'd set up another platform near a recent kill site, and as darkness fell, he heard it. The low, rumbling sound of a lion breathing. The sound was so close he could feel it vibrating through the wood beneath him. He aimed, fired, and heard a roar of pain. The first lion was wounded but not dead. It took another shot, another night of tracking, before Patterson finally killed it. 3 weeks later, after more stalking and near misses, he killed the second lion. The relief in the camps must have been overwhelming. Men could sleep again, work could resume, but the question remained: why did this happen? And could it happen again? Modern science has given us more pieces of the puzzle. Researchers have analyzed the isotopic signatures in the lion's bones and teeth, which can reveal what they ate throughout their lives. The results? These lions consumed a significant amount of human flesh. Yes, but not exclusively. They still hunted other animals. They were generalists, not specialists. Man-eating, it turns out, was an addition to their diet, not a replacement. They killed humans because they could, because it was efficient, and perhaps because they'd learned it was safe. There's another angle worth considering. Lions are social animals, but not all lions live in prides. These two were coalition males, likely brothers or close relatives, living without the structure of a larger pride. Males like this are often pushed to the margins of lion society. They're more willing to take risks, they're hungrier, they're more desperate. And desperation, in the animal kingdom, breeds innovation. If you're a marginal lion living in marginal habitat, you do what you must to survive. Let me paint you a picture of what those nights must have been like. Imagine you're in one of those camps. The day's heat has faded, replaced by the bone-chilling cold of the African night. Fires crackle. Men huddle together, exhausted but afraid to sleep. Someone tells a joke trying to break the tension. There's laughter, brief and hollow. Then, from somewhere in the darkness beyond the firelight, a sound. Low, guttural, not quite a growl, more like the sound of breathing, but impossibly deep. The laughter stops. Everyone freezes. The fire seems smaller suddenly. The night seems larger. And then, before anyone can react, a scream cuts through the air, followed by the sound of canvas tearing, followed by silence. By morning, another man is gone. That's not speculation, that's history. That happened night after night until Patterson ended it. Now, if you're still with me, and I hope you are because we're about to get to the truly fascinating part, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive into history's strangest stories. Hand drop a comment below. What do you think drove the Tsavo lions to hunt people? Was it desperation, learned behavior, or something else entirely? I want to hear your theories, especially if you've got personal experiences with wildlife or your own brush with predators. Let's return to that central question. Why humans? One theory that's gained traction in recent years is the opportunism hypothesis. It's simple but compelling. Lions are intelligent enough to evaluate risk versus reward. Hunting a buffalo is high risk. Those horns can kill you. Hunting a human, low risk, especially humans who are asleep, unarmed, and confined to tents. From the lion's perspective, this wasn't abnormal behavior. It was optimal behavior. They'd found an ecological niche, a food source that required minimal effort and danger. In the harsh calculus of survival, that's a winning strategy. But let's not forget the human element here. The railway workers weren't just victims of nature. They were victims of colonialism. The British didn't care about the safety or well-being of these laborers. They were expendable. The camps were poorly designed. Security was minimal. When the attacks started, the response was slow and inadequate. Patterson himself, despite his eventual success, took months to act decisively. How many lives could have been saved if the camps had been better fortified from the start? If workers had been given proper shelters? If someone had recognized the threat earlier and responded with urgency? The Tsavo lions killed an estimated 135 people, though the exact number is disputed. Some historians think Patterson exaggerated. Others believe the real toll was even higher, since many victims were never officially recorded. What's undisputed is that this was one of the most prolific man-eating episodes in recorded history, and it happened not in some ancient mythical past, but in the modern era, during an age of railways and telegraphs and empire. So what finally stopped them? Patterson's bullets, yes, but also possibly the end of their own effectiveness. Man-eating is a high-reward strategy only until humans adapt. Once Patterson organized serious defenses, once workers stopped being easy prey, the lions' advantage disappeared. It's possible that even if Patterson hadn't killed them, the lions would have eventually moved on, seeking easier hunting grounds. Or maybe not. Maybe they would have continued until every last worker fled or died. We'll never know. Here's what we do know. The Tsavo lions weren't monsters. They were animals responding to environmental pressures in the most efficient way they could. They weren't evil. They were pragmatic. And that in some ways is more unsettling than if they'd been supernatural creatures, because it means that under the right conditions, this could happen again. Lions are still lions. Humans are still soft and vulnerable. And when desperation meets opportunity, nature doesn't hesitate. If you've enjoyed this deep dive and you want to support more content like this, consider becoming a member of the channel or contributing any amount on Valo de Mai. Every bit helps me research and produce these stories, and I genuinely appreciate everyone who makes that possible. It's totally optional, but if this video gave you something valuable, I'd be grateful for your support. The legacy of the Tsavo lions extends far beyond those 9 months of terror. They've become symbols, archetypes of nature's capacity for violence. They've inspired books, films, and endless debate among scientists and historians. Patterson's original account was a bestseller. The lions' remains, stuffed and mounted, draw crowds at the Field Museum, and researchers continue to study them, using modern techniques to extract new insights from century-old bones. One of the most recent findings is particularly striking. Analysis suggests that while both lions ate humans, one consumed far more human flesh than the other. This supports the idea that man-eating behavior can vary even within a coalition. Maybe one lion learned it first. Maybe one was more desperate. Maybe one simply preferred the taste. Whatever the reason, it reminds us that animals, like humans, are individuals. They have personalities, preferences, histories. So, why did the Tsavo lions hunt humans? The answer is all of the above. Ecological collapse that eliminated their natural prey, dental disease that made traditional hunting difficult, learned behavior passed down through generations, human vulnerability and poor camp security, opportunism and intelligence, desperation and adaptation. It wasn't one factor. It was a perfect storm of circumstances that turned 2 lions into killers of people. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We like simple answers. We want a single villain to blame. But nature doesn't work that way. Nature is complex, messy, and indifferent to our need for neat explanations. The Tsavo lions killed because they were hungry, because they could, and because we made it easy. That's the truth. It's not comforting, but it's honest. The night Patterson killed the second lion, the camps erupted in celebration. Men danced, they sang, they fired guns into the air. The terror was over. But I wonder if anyone stopped to consider what those lions had revealed, not just about predators, but about us, about how fragile we are, about how quickly civilization can dissolve when confronted with teeth and claws, about the thin line between order and chaos. The Tsavo lions are gone, but their story remains. It reminds us that we're not separate from nature. We're part of it. And sometimes nature reminds us of that in the most brutal way possible. In the end, the question isn't just why they hunted us. It's what we learned from it, and whether we're ready for the next time something crosses that line. Es lo que aprendimos de ello, y si estamos preparados para la próxima vez que algo cruce esa línea.